Welcome everybody to another episode of Dr. Homebrew. Man alive, it has been a really long time since I have come to you. There's a lot of things that I could go ahead and say about that, but life has just been nuts. But I am really glad to be back here. This is something that I've kind of been tossing around for a little bit here. Looking forward to go ahead and come and talk to you guys about today. So I'm really excited to be back. Thank you for all the support throughout everything that we're doing on the Tabletop Journeys channel, not the least of which is Dr. Homebrew, and On the Right Path, of course, by my co-host Lee Wanika, the new Tabletop Cafe with Michael Ross, our regular episodes. Everything's been fantastic. We're really looking forward to everything that we have coming up forward here, and I'm really glad to be coming back to you today. So what are we going to be talking about? So we're going to be talking today kind of another episode, not unlike the Walls episode that I did, a couple months ago now, but talking about taking easy props that you can go ahead and bring to your in-life games. We've talked about this on the show before, that I am running an in-person game for the first time in years, pretty much pre-COVID, honestly. And I'm loving it. Absolutely loving it. This is probably a good time to go ahead and warn anybody of my players that are listening to this episode right now. There are going to be spoilers, so just be careful here. So, but one thing that we've talked about on the show a lot is that I am basically running a modified version of Vecna Eve of Ruin with my players. They don't know it yet. They haven't actually met. They're just at the end of Tier 1 shortly here, but so they don't really know kind of the plot that's going on here. They've been seeing a bunch of different things. It's kind of like it's basically the first big reveal is about to go ahead and happen. And so I really wanted it to be special. And at the end of Tier 1, kind of their Tier 1 big bad is going to be the big bad at the end of Nest of the Eldritch Eye, which, if you recall, is the precursor mission to Vecna Eve of Ruin. There's a whole series of things that are going to happen in Tier 2 that they're going to have to deal with before they kind of get into Eve of Ruin proper, but this is going to be the first time that they are going to get a glimpse of what is really going on. Now, here's the thing, is that I really wanted to go ahead and make this special, and so I wanted to go ahead and, keep physical map. I wanted to go ahead and bring out the maps, bring out the minis, whole 9 yards, because there's a pretty particular map that runs for this mission, but it's also, there's kind of a lot going on. So I wanted the map for easy reference here, right? Problem is that I play in person, and all the maps for Nest of the Eldritch Eye are kind of designed for VTT. So I had an issue here, right? And just printing out one of the VTT maps would be large. As you will see when I kind of show you some images of what I did do at the end here, the map that I decided to run with is like 6 feet by 3 feet. So it is huge. It would have been prohibitive to go ahead and print, certainly at the time frame that I was talking about, because it's Tuesday now, we play on Thursday. So I started doing some searching on the internet and tried to go ahead and see if I could find either maps that were already available in kind of tile format that I could go ahead and get printed out and kind of use that. I could never really find exactly what it was that I was looking for, but I did, however, find a fantastic VTT map. It's on a Patreon account called Carlos Pro Maps. We are now free subscribers. He's got a bunch of really cool stuff up there, but the one that really caught my eye was his modified map for Nest of the Eldritch Eye, and I thought that it was really neat. One of the things that I really liked about it was how he laid it out, how he kind of took care of some of the interesting bits that are on this map, some of the interesting details and things, but also just how neat and tidy the organization of the map was. Obviously, the map was kind of all over the place if you're familiar with the quest, but this map was just, it had really clean edges in terms of like its void space and stuff like that. That was a really well done map, and I'm looking forward to go ahead and using other maps from Carlos Pro Maps in the future here. So we'll see kind of how that works out. But this map in particular, I thought would really work for what it was that I was looking to go ahead and do. My plan was to go ahead and take that VTT map, break it apart into images that represented each of the rooms and passageways in that map. And then I was going to get the images printed, I was going to laminate them and mount them to foam core. So I recognize that I'm a little insane, and I'm not, because while while I'm going to go through here, I felt like the process actually worked out kind of exactly the way that I wanted to. I recognize that it is a little daunting, so I'm going to try to walk you through the individual pieces here, because the very first thing that I needed to do was I needed to figure out a way to break apart that map into easily digestible smaller images, right? Some of the rooms in that are really, really big, and so they're bigger than like 8.5 by 11 format. But even then, while I could have just like sucked it into a graphic editor and kind of like done it kind of that way, that's actually really, really hard. So the first thing that I did was actually I wrote a program that allowed me to go ahead and do this. It is surprisingly easy, actually, after doing a little bit of research. It's just a little bit of HTML coding, utilizing, if you're into the biz, utilizing just a document DOM canvas to basically suck in the image and then allow myself to map onto it. It has to be squares. I didn't get anything exotic, but you can basically map squares and then take those maps and make them into individual images and give me a slew of images that I could just download in whole. And so that was actually pretty straightforward, and I was actually really happy with the way that came out. That code is actually going to be available on our Patreon, by the way, which is www.patreon.com/ttjourneys. And it does basically exactly what I wanted to do. So if you wanted to go through this process for your own, that's a place to go ahead and start. It's nothing wild. It's nothing crazy. I'm not going to be updating it, but I will make that HTML code available, the HTML page itself available on our Patreon. But basically what that allowed me to do is to take that VTT map and break it up into 20 individual images, rooms, passageways. I tried to go ahead and use some economy of kind of what are things that I can combine, but for the most part, each passageway and each room got its own image. The next thing that I needed to do was really kind of the tough part. It was the actual photo editing itself, because once I had those broken apart there, because I was doing exact squares, sometimes parts of the map would bleed onto the tile, and I really wanted kind of a clean tile image so that I could go ahead and really make this modular. So there was some photo editing involved to go ahead and make that happen. It was not for the meek. I will be fully honest about that. But there were a couple of goals that I really had to hit with this part of the process. The first part was that I needed to go ahead and scale the images, because if you remember, I'm just basically mapping onto the image and exporting as a picture. I did need to go ahead and make sure that when I printed them, that still maintained that 1 inch is 5 feet on the map if I'm going to be using it as a physical map. So that was kind of the first thing that had to be done, was the images had to be scaled. The other thing that needed to happen is I needed to go ahead and make sure that once I made them into tiles, that these maps that these pieces fit together just as closely as possible. I'm giving myself a little bit of tolerance there, but that was still pretty tricky to go ahead and figure out, how do I want the rooms and passages differently so that they go ahead, so I'm not repeating into the same area and that they kind of fit together neatly on corners. It's something that I actually got better at as I went through the process, and so the first couple of tiles in this are not great at that. Got way better by the end once I go ahead and made life a little bit easier for myself. But once I got that set up, I basically combined the images as much as I could onto single pages and made them into PDFs and printed them. Now, there were some rooms that, again, were bigger than one page, so I actually had to break apart those images into multiple files and then stitch them together manually once I got to the foam core step. So the next thing that I did, and in retrospect, this is a part that I would have skipped because it definitely made the next part harder, but I laminated them all. My wife used to be a teacher. We have a laminator on hand. Laminators are super easy, and I recommend them a lot of the time. However, in this case, with this application, lamination not only kind of caused a problem, but it wasn't necessary, since honestly, some of the laminates kind of already beginning to go ahead and peel off 24 hours later. It makes the mounting to foam core more difficult for sure, because the back of the image is laminated, it's plastic. So you really have to get very specific glue to go ahead and make sure that you're mounting it into the foam core. But even more than that, when I was trimming down the images, kind of away from their 8 by 8.5 by 11 print page, so that it was just the tile image, you're breaking apart the seal on the laminate, and a lot of times that would cause basically the laminate just to peel off anyway. So, it wasn't super necessary. If you have self-adhesive foam core, which is available, and I love self-adhesive foam core, it might be worth it, but for me, I did not have self-adhesive foam core, so it created a problem. If I do this again, I'm not going to go ahead and laminate the pages. I will say that if you're not going to laminate the pages, I would recommend making the image brighter. Remember that printing an image is always going to be darker than it is going to appear on the page, especially if you're running with any sort of brightness on your monitor. You've got to remember, lighten up images. Anyway, once they were cut down, I began mounting them in the foam core, and this is not difficult, right? You take the image, you glue it onto the foam core, take an X-Acto knife, cut it out. That's really, really straightforward. It's time consuming, but, at the end of the day, that's really what it is. I did do one final check of the map to go ahead and make sure that it fit, and you'll see that image kind of come up here on the screen here, just to go ahead and make sure that the map actually fits together and trim down to bits, but it fit together kind of exactly the way that I hoped it would. There was one room that I think I scaled incorrectly, and so that part of the map is a little wonky, but I'm currently trying to decide right now if I'm going to bother going through the time to reprint it, or if I'm just going to let it fly and deal with it. But there you have it. I mean, now the map is mounted onto foam core. It's very portable. It's very stable, which is great. And it's going to be really, really useful. I think it's going to be very, very effective when we roll it out, especially since now I'm going to be able to go ahead and roll it out in kind of a modular format. So the characters will see exactly what it is that they can see as they are moving through the map. And I'm sure on some level that I made this sound a whole lot easier than it actually was. But it's actually not that hard if you have the right tools. So these are the tools that I used to go ahead and do it in terms of things that I had on hand here. And all said and done, in terms of the time commitment, though, if you take out the fact that I had to go ahead and write custom software to go ahead and do the first part of it and break apart the map, I would say that I'm in for probably about 10 to 12 hours. And this is for, again, a 24 tile map. Might even be more than that, actually, at the end of the day. But, it's a ton. There's a lot of content here. I will say that my impulse to not print the map was correct, because, again, a 6x3 map would have been cost prohibitive at the end of the day. It was going to be way more expensive than what I did here. I'm going to include the material list of things that I had to go ahead and buy right here also, because I was able to go ahead and do this for about $30, and that included getting the PDFs printed as opposed to printing them on my own. That was more of a quality and time-saving measure, and I didn't want to go ahead and use all of my ink to go ahead and print these things out, because obviously it's a lot. That's with that many images. Again, it was like 20 or 30 pages worth of stuff. So, at the end of the day, that's what it took. Anyway, I'd love to go ahead and hear your thoughts on here. I'd love to hear your feedback. As always, what kind of shows do you want us to be doing on these vlogs, and what kind of shows do you want to be seeing on the channel? Love to go ahead and have you comment down below. But as always, if you are a new watcher to the channel, please subscribe. We've got a ton of stuff coming out here on the Tabletop Journeys channel. You're going to love it. A bunch of new stuff just tonight. In fact, we're going to be running through the character creation bit for the Monty Python new tabletop role-playing game. Really excited about that. Brian Saliba is very generously deciding to go ahead and come on and run a game with us, so we're really looking forward to having that on the channel here in the coming weeks. And we've got the next Class Warfare coming up. We recorded Class Warfare Wizards with Luanika running the scenario just a couple of nights, about a week ago actually, that's gonna be coming out on the channel here in the next couple of weeks also. So like I said, please like, subscribe, leave comments. We'd love to go ahead and hear from you, and if you'd like to go ahead and support the show in a kind of a bigger way also, don't forget to go ahead and check out our Patreon. Not only is the HTML code for the tool that I wrote to go ahead and break apart a map into smaller images going to be there, but there's plenty of other reasons to go ahead and support the show through Patreon, including the monthly Patreon game that we play. Right now we're running a lot of Star Trek, but there's going to be some more games coming up on the channel here very, very soon. We'd love to go ahead and see you over there also. But until next time, this has been Dr. Homebrew. Thank you very much.